My name is Rodney Evans. I am the SLO coordinator here in the Office of Educator Effectiveness and Leadership Development. And I am joined today by my colleague, Faye Colley. And I'll just allow her to speak to you all on this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be training with Rodney Evans. He's a wonderful colleague. Him and I work and assist people with the ADEPT evaluation process, including the SLO, as you will learn today. Of course, this is part of our South Carolina evaluation system. Good morning and welcome.
All right. Thank you, Faye. All right. So we can go to the next slide. And some of you have already uh, given us this information. So if you have yet to do so, just let us know what school district you're representing on today, your current role, and one thing that you'd like to get out of today's training. So while people are typing those responses, I'm just going to look at a few that have been recorded already. All right. Ms. Bradley says she's with our department and she wants to be a better support to teachers during this process. All right, Lisa Brett, pretty much the same thing. All right. Want to know how SLOs, Francis wants to know how SLOs should be used. Good. And Calandra looking for some examples and be able to provide teachers with more clarity and resources. So we'll continue to look at those responses for those who I haven't had a chance to read yet. But we'll go ahead and get ready to debrief the pre-work assignment that you had to complete before this morning. So the initial email that was sent out with the training information, you were asked to complete this pre-work assignment, and we simply just wanted you to inform us about what you know about SLOs and TLGs, and ask any questions that you may have around the SLO process. So what we'll do now, we'll just have a few participants to respond to the pre-work, and we'll just look at that first question. What do you already know? What do you already know about the SLO process or the teacher leadership goal process? And we'll just ask maybe one or two participants just to share on the mic. What do you already know?
Right, this is Francis. I know it is supposed to support student growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. We'd love to hear from someone else. You can just record your response from your pre-work. What do you already know? And you can talk about SLOs or TLGs or both. What do you know about both or either or?
And this is Francis. And for the teacher leadership goal, I know it can be used in place of an SLO for leadership growth.
Okay. Yeah. For those teacher leaders, absolutely. Good. All right. Someone else. What do you already know?
Know that the teachers write, this is Al, the teachers write the objectives annually in order to promote student achievement, and that's an important thing with all school districts for sure.
All right. All right. All right. Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to share what you already know about the SLO or the teacher leadership goal? Would anyone else like to share? And you can also put those responses in the chat box.
Is Devetta Bradley. As far as SLOs, it is a mean of teacher reflection. I think that's the most powerful piece that is used for the mode of teacher evaluation.
Awesome. 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 All right. Any questions? And we may not be able to answer all questions, or we may not take the time to answer all questions now. But of course, we hope that by the end of this training that we would have answered your questions. But are there any specific questions that you have before we get started? Okay, well, as you have questions, feel free to raise your hand, um, hop on the mic, or put a response in the chat box. Okay, we'll now look at our training objectives for today. what will we accomplish during our time together? All right, we're looking to build an understanding about what SLOs are, what the SLO model looks like in South Carolina, and how SLOs can be used for evaluation and professional growth. Secondly, we'll build an understanding about the SLO cycle and the implications for district leaders, school leaders, and teachers. And lastly, we're going to prepare you to make decisions to be able to develop support materials and implement SLO training at the district or local level. This is how our agenda will look on today. So we'll have our little welcome session early this morning, and we'll get into our mini session with Faye Colley. And then on your own, this will be your asynchronous time. You'll have your work session 1. You'll take lunch and also complete your work session 2 activities. And that will happen between 10:30 a.m. this morning and 12:30 p.m. Of course, if we get done a little early, then that will extend that time that you'll have to work on those sessions or those sections. And then lastly, we'll have our mini session that will be our last synchronous time together from 12:30 until 3:30. All right, now, Faye is going to come to you and she's going to dive into the role of SLOs in the SE Educator evaluation process.
Awesome. Thanks, Rodney. So very much ahead of schedule. So hopefully you'll have lots of work time for later. We are doing mini session 1 right now, and we will cover the role of the SLOs in the South Carolina educator evaluation process. So some of you may already know, and you have experienced last year some difficulty, well, in starting in 2020, 21, due to the pandemic. So our office responded accordingly and presented a memorandum of the COVID flexibilities as it relates to the evaluation process. And one of those flexibilities included a simplified template for the SLO. So it was placed into effect in 2020-21, and that has carried on until now. So we actually gathered feedback from the district like, hey, do you want us to continue using this template? And we heard loud and clear that that was the response. Again, our office, we listen to you and we're not trying to give you just extra paperwork, right? So if this worked for you, the simplified template, then we move forward in using that same template to this time. So we just had a few tweaks to that template, but it remains, just in general, the SLO remains a big part of the evaluation system in South Carolina. So as we dig into this session, our part 1, we'll talk about the role of the SLOs in SE Educator evaluation. So we want to talk about the purpose and role of SLOs in the STS 4.0 expanded adept evaluation system. We want to talk about how SLOs are weighed in overall effectiveness rating. The business rules will break it down for you around the SLO development. And of course, our role at the agency, at the Office of Educator Effectiveness and Leadership Development, your role at the district level, the roles of your school leaders, your principals, and the teachers that are actually doing the SLOs. What are their roles in this process? So just a quick temperature check. Raise your hand, or if you don't have that icon, the reactions icon on the upper right or in the middle of your screen for raise your hand. If you just type in the chat, does this profile look familiar to you? I'm hoping for an answer that's, yeah, I see hands up. Yep, Lisa, yep. DeVerit. I see some hands. Kalandra, yes. All right, thank you so much. So this should be all familiar to us at this point. Our agency has shared this graphic as a vision, right? It's a graphic reminder of what we want our students in South Carolina to achieve. Stakeholders were asked in putting this thing together as a vision of what makes a successful graduate of South Carolina. And so in short, what we're just trying to remind you is that we know that teacher effectiveness impacts student growth, and we want high quality teachers, but also it's not just about high quality teachers. It's making sure that they use their knowledge to impact the student growth. So without further ado, I'll move on to the next slide and just out the expanded adapt evaluation system as a big umbrella. What is the purpose of that? Again, it ties back to that student achievement. And with that student achievement, our new evaluation model, we rolled this out in 2018, right? The expanded adapt, because now it focuses on ongoing feedback. We want that feedback to grow our educators. So many of you are familiar that our new model requires the pre-conference, during the preliminary cycle, and the post-conference, right? In the preliminary cycle, but in the final cycle, then you require only the post-conference. But what we're trying to get to is giving that feedback to the teachers so that we could grow them, and ultimately they could impact their students and have student achievement, not just for one classroom, but for all students in South Carolina. All right, so just a quick review. Some of us are new, right? So we just want to be clear on who are we talking about and who are being evaluated. So on the left side of the screen is a column on those who are evaluated under the expanded ADEPT. And we refer to those educators evaluated under that as classroom-based teachers. And they're the ones that are planning, delivering instruction, and assess their instruction over time. And then on the right-hand column, you will see those that are evaluated under the 2020 ADEPT for special areas. So these are your school counselors, speech language professionals, and school librarians. So we call it 2020 ADEPT for special areas because that's when it was first drafted, approved, and adopted by pilot districts. And then last year was our full implementation for that. So for this specific training, when we're talking about the SLO, we're talking about the SLO as a component of the expanded ADEPT evaluation system, not a component of the 2020 ADEPT for special areas.
Hey, Faye, just while you're on that slide, can you go back? I just want to reiterate something there. I think it's good for districts. So in the past, that has been a question, should our special area folk complete an SLO? Well, with the new special areas evaluation system, there is a growth piece already a part of it. So for clarity, special area educators will not have to complete an SLO, as there is a growth piece incorporated in their evaluation model. Someone asked for a copy of these slides. We will make sure that they're accessible. So within a week after the training, we'll see that we can email you all the slides, but we have to make sure that they are accessible and follow our agency guidelines before sending them out to anyone. But just wanted to share that with you. Thank you, Faye.
You're very welcome. And that is one of those big questions. But as we dig into the SLO business rules, we'll kind of understand why it's slightly different. We don't want our educators to feel like we're hammering them. We want to give them what is appropriate for their own setting and what their goals are as professionals in the building. Also, in addition to that, we request about the PowerPoint. We are recording this session so that we can share it well, and we will have that closed caption. Hopefully within a week or two this training, we can offer you this recording. All right. So here we are going to talk about the definition of the SLO, and this is just a graphic, again, of what it is, in a nutshell. So the SLO is a vehicle for collecting and analyzing student growth. It's about academic growth goals. Okay, so we are not going to talk about IEP, although later on we'll touch on that might be something that you would consider, but the SLO in itself is about academic growth of the students. We know that the SLO has to be data-based and standards-based. So it would actually involve assessing a pre-assessment right? And you're also looking at what could you grow the students in? What are the standards that you could target that are most relevant? And then that the SLO, it actually has to be collaborative. You know, let's get the other players part of it. Let's not leave our teachers alone to sink or swim, right? So we have like some mentors that are helping them develop that. They may have, they might be assigned a team SLO so they could have that support. And of course, the monitoring, there's that assessment within the interval of the SLO. So again, just to drive it through, the SLO process involves pre-assessment of the students, providing instruction, post-assessment of students, so that ultimately you can measure that growth. All right, so it's enough talking from me. I do want to have a friend from, and I'm just gonna randomly call somebody that's with us. I'm just gonna go ahead and call Kristen because she's the last person in the chat. Kristen, do me a favor in just reading our 4 bullets on the purpose of the SLOs.
To capture student growth in every classroom, to reinforce evidence-based teaching practices, to connect teacher practice to student outcomes, and to encourage collaboration.
Thanks so much, Kristen. And I am curious, I want to do a quick temperature check, you know, knowing that, oh, these are the purposes of the SLOs. In real life, or in your setting, do you see these happening? Do you see bullet 1, just type 1, bullet 2, type 2, bullet 3, type 3, bullet 4, type 4, or do you see all of them that just type all? I'm curious to see if what our intention is behind the SLO, what its purpose is supposed to be, if it's something that you all see at your level. So type in the chat, you know, thanks, Dr. Ina Bennett. Thanks, Jackie. Awesome. Okay. 1 and 2 are quite obvious to some. It's about student growth, evidence-based teaching practices. Yeah. So if you said all, that's awesome, right? That you see it in practice. So maybe if you don't see all the other bullets happening, being aware of it, maybe you could be more intentional as you drive your educators in understanding what the O is about. Yes, absolutely. Lots of collaboration, right? And then some 2 and 3 evidence-based teaching practices. Again, we tie it to what the high quality teachers are supposed to be doing. Thank you for that quick temperature check. All right. So combining components to create a teacher effectiveness rating. So if you have read through the expanded ADEPT guidelines, would know that the SLO is used in calculating the overall teacher effectiveness rating. So we're not doing an SETS 4.0 evaluator training right now, but just as a general information, we know that it involves some observation and tying those observations according to the rubric. We rate different indicators under 4 different domains, right? So on the SLO side, it impacts the teacher's overall effectiveness rating because number 1, if you do not do an SLO, that is an automatic rating of 1, which will impact a negative 0.25 on the teacher's effectiveness rating. If the teacher is successful according to the SLO rubric, if it is only exemplary at a 4, will it impact positively with a plus 0.25 rating. So if they land on a 2 or a 3, it doesn't impact the rating of the educator because overall the rating, the way it's rated and calculated for the expanded ADEPT, there's a 0.5 increment difference. So those middle part, it doesn't impact if they land on the 2 or the 3, but the point, if it's a 4, it adds 0.25. And if it's an SLO rated at a 1, then it takes away negative 0.25. And just know that we do provide a state SLO rubric, but you as a district can develop your local SLO rubric. And that actually touches on in this section where we're going to talk about the SLO business rules for South Carolina. So one of those things, again, the district rules will vary, and part of that variation is you determining how you want to rate those SLOs. You can have those models created and just make sure that's submitted with your ADEPT plan, so your effectiveness associate liaison can move on with feedback and approval for that one. So just as a big umbrella, again, for this section, we'll review the business rules that are associated with the SLO process, and then letting you know you have flexibility within the SLO process. We always say that the state sets the floor, and you can always rise above that. We have the minimum requirements, okay? But whatever you come up with within your district, you need to make sure that you make your educators aware of those business rules, because sometimes they do come to us and like, oh, this says this, but we always have to tell educators that there's flexibility that's given to the district, and to refer to the contact to see what those what the specific business rules are that have been set in place. All right. So again, enough of my talking. I'm going to ask for some friends' help, and I'm going to request my friend Al. It's going to be my pattern for today, the last thing in the chat, but please don't back away from putting in your responses. Al, if you would read the first bullet, that would be fantastic.
All educators, tested and non-tested grades and subjects are required to develop and implement one student learning objective annually as a student growth measure.
Thank you so much, Al. So just a quick question. If I am a PE teacher, should I be doing an SLO? A quick type of yes or no in that chat box. Awesome. It's a unanimous yes. So you can't have your PE teachers be the one telling you, I'm not doing an SLO because I'm not tested. There's no state testing for it, right? So they still do that. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to ask next friend, Lisa, bullet number 2, please.
The building administrator can direct educators to develop either an individual or team SLO. The type should be determined by individual teachers' needs, teaching circumstances, and students' needs.
Awesome, right? So if it's individual or team, let's have a quick question on this one. If I am an induction teacher, in my circumstances, maybe things are kind of hard in the first semester, would it be okay for me to do my SLO in the second semester? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, hey, Calandra. So I was like talking about bullet 2, we want to be considerate of the circumstances of each educator and their needs, right? So if I were an induction teacher and I am struggling in the beginning because I'm new and I have to attend all the induction classes, would it be okay for me to do my my SLO during the second semester?
Thanks.
You're welcome. And I do appreciate you asking for clarification, right? You didn't just go with the flow. Everybody's saying yes, right? That's what we want our kids to develop, critical thinking. So we just don't go with the flow. She might have a different idea, right? So thank you so much. And definitely, yes, that's a part of your flexibility. Again, if that's what you decide, make it clear and communicate that to your educators. And then for our last one, Francis, will you please read that last bullet for me?
The building administrator can also direct educators to assume one of the, I'm trying to move my information because it's on my slide. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I can't see it now.
Awesome. We'll have a friend help you if that's okay.
Thank you.
All right, Lindsay, will you please help and just start over with bullet 3?
The building administrator can also direct educators to assume one of the following approaches to SLO development: course or class. The approach should be one that is most appropriate for the educator's context and circumstances.
All right, so I'm gonna throw you off the loop. I'm not gonna throw in a question on this one. I think we understand what it's saying, and so far you've all been responding in the chat with your level of understanding of what some of those flexibilities would look like in the real world, depending on the circumstances of your educators. Right, so we'll move on to this slide. And this slide is, again, just a reminder that you are required to hold conferences, and it's not physically you, right? You can assign an evaluator or approver. They don't necessarily have to be SCTS 4.0 evaluator certified to be an SLO approver, right? So they start with that preliminary conference, and they're pretty much talking about what the SLO is going to be. So if it was hard for you to visualize that the SLO is about collaboration, this part already entails collaboration. It's like discussing, like, is this really appropriate? How is it appropriate? And there's a lot of that conversation why, you know, the teacher might say that, hey, I think I should go for a, you know, one that's a team and not an individual, or I should do it during the second semester instead of the first semester. So there's conversations going through here, and we want to set up our educators for success. Again, we're not trying to hammer them, want to set them up for success, want to make them feel happy and confident so that that translates in the classroom, right? That you're not trying to bait them. You want your teachers and educators to be on board on how they're going to grow their students and show that student growth at the end with the post-assessment. So then in the middle of the course or of the SL, there should be a mid-course conference, and then there's a summative conference. The caveat to this is that even though you see 3 different names here, preliminary, mid, and summative, some of you may already have practice in putting together like 2 conferences in one. So if you have your evaluators holding a post-conference for a specific observation, and you gave that evaluator the right to be the approver as well for the SLO, then they could have that post-conference also as a conference for a mid-course for the SLO. So we want you to maximize your time and, again, not feel like, you know, it's taking too much. So definitely you can have that as consideration. You fold 2 meetings in one. You can inform your if that's the business rule you want to apply, you can inform your educators or SLO approvers to do the same. So, and then of course, at the end of the year, you know, you have to have a discussion on what were the results, right? Of that, using, of course, the rubric that you have selected for the SLO. And again, in the previous slide, we talked about how that may impact the overall teaching effectiveness score. Rodney will also, at least, I believe, would touch back on those conferences later. All right. So we're going to talk about the number of students that are required for a teacher to have to hold their SLO. So the minimum number is 6. There's no maximum number, right? And this information you can actually find in the SLO business rules, page 1. So we're just diving deep into the discussion of that. I'll put your attention to bullet 3 from the top, where there's less than 6 students, teacher will contact building principal for direction. So again, your district has that discretion of, you know, putting together your business rules, right? If I'm at the district and I read this, I'm like, okay, they're going to contact my principal, or if I'm the principal, okay, I'm the principal, they're contacting me. Okay, what am I going to do? So we need to be clear. So the business rule actually says that the principal may determine if they will still require that educator who has less than 6 students to have an SLO. In general, some of the districts, or most districts, would actually just exercise their right to do a skip. So we don't, you know, some would call it like an incomplete SLO, but we don't want to negatively impact the teacher's score and give them a 1 because they suddenly had less than 6 students. That is not fair. So inside sclee.org, if you're using that system, you would have that option for a drop down, and then the reason to skip it, like you started in the middle of the year, in the beginning of the year, but in the middle of the year, there were less students, then you can go to that section for the SLO and have that drop down option to skip with the reason of number of students. And I did see 2 hands go up, which were Will and Calandra, and I'll go ahead and call Will, Calandra, then Lisa. You can hop on the mic right now if you need to.
Hey, Faye, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
And so that is something that we struggle with. And I'm still an elementary principal at this point, transitioning into a new role next year. But we have certified interventionists that typically will have fewer than 6 students year after year by the time it's time to wrap up the SLO. Is it not okay to start with a GBE instead of an SLO if you know that they will have fewer than 6 students at the end? Or what's the best way to handle that?
Yeah, so and then Rodney can also chime in at any time. The great news is there is what we call the TLG, which we highly recommend for those interventionists. Prior to the TLG existing, when I was an interventionist myself, a math interventionist, I was actually asked to do goals-based evaluation because of the student population changing at all times. And on the next slide, we'll actually talk about the time frame, the intervention, how long the SLO should be, how long the students need to be present. So in that case, if we didn't have a TLG, a GBE would actually be appropriate for that because of that scenario. I hope that answers your question. And Rodney, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So different ways to look at it. For those teachers who don't work with students, a minimum of 6 students, let's say that the teacher, that a teacher may work with 6 students for a semester or for 9 weeks. So for that educator who may work with 6 students consistently for 9 weeks, then we can shorten the SLO interval so that they can use that data for those 6 students. Another option would be to allow that educator to do a GBE goal since they don't meet the business rules. And then another option would be the teacher leadership goal. And we'll look at that a little bit later. I think during one of your work sessions, you'll kind of get a deeper dive into that. And with that deep dive, it'll show you the eligibility for teachers who it would be appropriate for them to do a TLG. So again, those teachers who may not have enough students, if there's a time frame, at least 9 weeks, we would say that, okay, well, if you're going to have 6 students for at least 9 weeks, then you can have a shortened SLO interval. If not, then we will look at those other options. But we get that all the time. But we're thankful to have the teacher leadership goal as an option outside of the GBE now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that answered your question, Will. I'll move on to Calandra if that's okay.
Thank you. My question was, earlier I heard you mention that districts just have the autonomy to decide their business rules based upon the State Department. So is that supposed to be outlined and communicated to the State Department in our ADEPT plan?
No, ma'am. There's no specific, portion for that, and Rodney can speak to that. But you do need to communicate that to your educators. We do request that your rubric, if you're doing a locally developed model, that's part of what we approve. And when you're doing flexibilities, like we are saying minimum of 6, it's not like, okay, you're going to change the minimum number, so you're still within the big parameters when you're doing some flexibility, such as like on this part, like contact your principal, then it has to be your choice. Am I going to request the teacher to have an SLO considering that it's less than 6? And you might say yes to it. We don't recommend it, but like we said, you know, that is a flexibility that you can have in the direction from the principal. But
Okay.
then the principal will have to have that direction from you.
Got it. I understand. Thank you.
Awesome. Rodney, do you have anything to add to that as a response to Kalandra? You are on mute, Rodney.
Yep. I just noticed that. All right. Yeah. Again, that was what was mentioned earlier, is that we set the floor. So the business rules that you see, that's pretty much the floor. And again, districts could add on to that, but pretty much that's the floor. So you may have some additional business rules or some additional things that you want your teachers to do in the district on top of what we set as the floor when it comes to business rules. So nothing else to add. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Lisa, thank you for your patience.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Just a quick question with the minimum of 6 students. So we have like a preschool self-contained classroom that every year she has less than 6 students. So it will be maybe 3 or 4 students, but it's consistent through the whole year. And we know that. So we've always approved that still to do the SLO. We've never skipped the SLO. Is it expected that I skip the SLO for that? Or since it's consistent students, is it okay to still have her do that full year SLO?
We definitely encourage you to have that SLO if you know that. And that again falls in that bullet 3, right? Less than 6 will contact the building for direction, because you have, like we talked about, the circumstances, right? So that falls under that bucket. That's why we give you that. It's not an expectation that you just skip it just because, and it's a way out. Let me just skip it, right? Let's not
Well,
measure
that's what I was
any
thinking. I
student,
was like, well,
right?
gosh, like I don't want to
So-
open it up and then everybody they're like, well, I actually have 4. So okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
absolutely, you have that flexibility to continue to expect that teacher, because you know that in terms of the duration, they will, they will be there and there'll be data. That's not bad data because the students are in that room throughout the duration. Rodney, do you have something to add?
No, I don't have. Well, I'll just say this. You know, we want teachers to have close to 6 students as possible. I mean, that's just for data collection purposes. But again, there are some, some different cases and some other situations where a teacher may be able to complete the SLO with less than 6 students, but we highly recommend that there are at least 6 students.
All right, I think we can move forward. All right, so just some more recommendations down here that you see on the slide. That's what Rodney was talking about with, the minimum number, just because we want to see a more substantial data, right? So that's why we want you to choose the greatest number of students. If it's an educator that may be teaching the same subject multiple times, maybe it's departmental at that school, and choose the class that has more students. And again, we would like the focus or the emphasis to be on the core subjects such as math or reading. And without further ado, we will move on to this next slide that we kind of touched a little while ago, right? So Rodney mentioned, in some cases we might, shorten the interval of the SLO, but attendance-wise, the teacher himself or herself need to be present 85% of that teaching interval for the SLO. And then on the lower right, for student attendance, they must be present 75% of the teaching interval. So if they're out, more than 25%, so that it's a consecutive absence, right? Again, this is one of those things where we're letting the teachers know that, again, this is not a hammer. We do understand that if your student's not there all the time, then it's hard to teach a student, and therefore for them to retain the knowledge and then show that learning at the post-assessment. So, we just want to be transparent about that, hey, yes, if your student, you may count off that student. Maybe you had 12 students and that one student has been out, 28% of the time, then you can count that off with the data that you gather and base the SLO on when you rate it at the end of the year. Again, we've touched on earlier that on the upper right, you'll see there, focus of the goal must be academic in nature, not behavioral. And that ties to the one on the lower left on the screen. So your IEP goals, if those tie to behavioral issues or goals, they can inform your SLO, but it's not your SLO. It's not the educator's SLO goal. So IEP is individualized, right? SLO is a group goal. So that in itself kind of gives you the distinction between the two. And just pointing out some more in terms of student attendance. So in the business rules, you will actually see there that if you chose a year-long SLO, that would mean at least 5 of attendance for the students that are part of that SLO. If it were a semester, it would have to be 68 days of attendance. And if it were a quarter, then it would have to be 38 days of attendance. All right.
Hey, Faith, right before you,
Yeah,
I just
go
want to
ahead.
share something I think is very valuable to district leaders when it comes to the SLO process, and those of you who will be closing out records at the end of the year. The red box, teachers must be present for 85% of the teaching interval. So for those educators who may go out on leave, and when you actually look at the actual business rules on our website, it states this. So for those teachers that may be out for leave and they're absent for more than 85% of the teaching interval, you don't have to give them a incomplete on the SLO. And then you'll see it in the business rules. It says that they can have a shortened SLO interval to able to get that SLO completed. So someone would reach out to me, and that happened quite a few times this year. District adept contacts would reach out and would want to know what to do, or they would go ahead and mark the SLO incomplete. But if the teacher's out for leave, we do have that in the business rules where the district can shorten that SLO interval. Again, we don't like to go under 9 weeks, but there could be a special case where this teacher may have to do in between 6 and 9 weeks to get her SLO in. So if that's attainable, then we want to give teachers those opportunities.
Absolutely. So again, it's tying to our new evaluation model, right? We do not want this to be a hammer. We want to see growth from students. If it's doable, that they were able to gather enough data in the 6 weeks period, then definitely, if you have questions, reach out to your education associate contact in our office. But just as Rodney explained, go on and consider that special circumstance, because when teachers are on leave, that we should not be punishing them for being on leave, because that leave was granted for a specific reason, right? Okay, so now moving on. So we'll talk about the roles and responsibilities of the different players. Like I said, this is a collaborative thing in terms of the SLO. So on our side, on the left column, you will see that we're here to provide the guidance, give you the outline. We're doing this training to be able to inform you of what your roles are and what your school leaders and teachers should be doing. So that hits bullet 2, providing that training, and the resources will be giving you a copy of this recording once it's closed caption. And then we'll also show you the resources that we have on our website. And of course, Rodney already shared in the logistics email the Google slides that he's created just for this district training. So then we'll also, bullet 3, go over just a general look at all these different tools that we have ready for you. The SLO template, a quality review tool, assessment checklist, and the SLO rating scale. So for you in the district, what should you be doing? So I'm gonna ask a friend to read it off for me, all these three bullet ones, and let's see whom of my friends. Oh, I think I would like to ask my friend DeVeter. Did I say that correctly? Is that how you pronounce it, DeVeter?
It's the better.
DeVetter. Sorry, it's very unique. It's beautiful. DeVetter, would you please go ahead and read what our district leaders' responsibilities and roles are?
All three of them?
Yes, ma'am.
That's okay, thank you. Provide training and professional development to support a successful SLO implementation. Establish district-wide rules and guidance around SLOs and establish criteria for strong assessments.
Thank you so much. So hopefully whatever resources we have, you in the district level could, use that to your advantage to provide your training. And again, if you need, help and support, contact your effectiveness associate in our office and we'll help you as best as we can. All right, and then in terms of roles for the school administrators on the left-hand side, we don't expect the district people unless, of course, you're a small district, and we do see that some are very hands-on from the district level, and they do take part on the evaluation team of educators and approve the SLO goals. But again, the school administrator could do that, or they could have assign somebody else that they deem maybe it's I know when I was at the school, we had our literacy coach and instructional coaches helping out with being SLO approvers or evaluators. All right. And then conducting those conferences, we've discussed that earlier. You see beginning, which includes the pre-approval, the mid-course, and the summative. And again, the mid-course you can fold in other meetings. And of course, review the SLO ratings that's been given. So that's on the administrator level. And then the teachers, of course, are the ones that are very hands-on. They need to gather and analyze the baseline data for their students, colleagues to establish their goals and collect data, write the actual SLO, gather and analyze the end of cycle data as it pertains to the SLO. They do self-score, and then they do their reflection on the outcomes of the SLO with their evaluator. When we say write, your ADEPT coordinators submit to us a yearly ADEPT plan. And in that one, there is actually an option where, whether you're going to use SE Lead to enter those SLOs or not. If you choose not to enter the SLOs to track it in SE Lead, that is your district's choice. Just let us know in that ADEPT plan, but it does have to still be written. We're not going to collect individual templates that each and every educator creates. At the end of the year, it's just the scores that need to be reported to our office.
I'm sorry, Faye. I just want to interject one time. I think I left off a bullet that I probably needed to add for school administrators. So a question that we get all the time, does the school administrator or the SLO approver or the SLO evaluator, those can be used interchangeably, do they have to be certified, right? Do they have to be a certified evaluator? So when it comes to the school administrator, I mean, the principals have a lot on their plate. So we do allow for principals to delegate or have someone to assist with the SLO evaluation process. So that would be another bullet that I probably could add to also delegate, someone who could serve as the SLO evaluator for other teachers in the building. And that educator would not have to be a certified evaluator, but definitely someone who's a seasoned teacher, possibly a content expert in that area of the teacher who they'll be evaluating. So that's just some flexibility that principals also have with getting the SLOs evaluated in the school building.
Absolutely. Thanks for driving that in, Rodney. So we did touch on that earlier on when we had that big umbrella on how the teacher effectiveness overall rating is impacted. So even though SCTS 4.0 is tied to this SLO, the SLO approver or evaluator does not need to be a certified SCTS 4.0 evaluator or have gone through that specific training. Thanks, Rodney. All right, we are moving on. So let's talk about the role of school administrators in ensuring SLOs are high quality. So one of their roles is to make sure that they support the teachers in writing. But again, this is not your literal principal, right? So as Rodney mentioned, and I reiterated, it could be a designee, right? That's maybe somebody that's in a content expert that's assisting educator. But if the principal is specifically doing it, then it actually ties to their PDEP standards. I think I'm not as knowledgeable in the PDEP standards, but I believe like Vision 1 is like communicating, right? So if they're communicating what high quality is and they're literally doing that, that ties to their own evaluation system. Also, principals play a key role in supporting SLO implementation through these things that are listed here, you know, providing some planning time, of course, these are like sub of planning and scheduling, the vertical and horizontal planning, having staff development, establishing that culture, you know, there may be data digs or meetings, sharing resources and verifying district data on attendance and enrollment, because that would fall under those previous slides that we've gone through in terms of like the 85% that's required of the teacher attendance, and then 75% of the students' attendance. So hopefully that's something that could be lifted off of the educators, especially that last part about verifying the district data on attendance and enrollment. All right, so the SLOs and different types of teachers. So earlier I had that quick question, temperature check, and you all said, yeah, this induction teacher can have it on the second semester, right? So we expect our induction teachers to write SLOs, and that whatever they get as a score is, again, part of their overall teaching effectiveness score. It's also expected of annual and continuing contract teachers, right? That includes those that are in areas such as non-tested, like the physical education, music, right? They write, and again, same thing. It's going to be part of the overall effectiveness score. So we've talked about that, the special education teachers as well. They will be doing SLOs. There's that flexibility in the SLO approach, because it might be approach or individual. It might be easier if they're doing it with a co-teacher. So here, when it says may be included in personnel decisions, so again, that's up to you, right? How do you want to weigh in when the SLO impacts that educator in the hiring process? Are you gonna rehire for the following year? But again, we're not telling you how to do it, but it is part of the process, and that's something that you can definitely consider for your recommendations for the following year for your educator. All right, so we are rolling. We are 30 minutes ahead. So I'm just going to go over the guidance for your asynchronous work time. So we'll have asynchronous work time, lunch. Your asynchronous would be work session 1 and work session 2. And you are professionals. We trust you to manage your time. So it is until 12:30. So we'll dismiss you quite soon. So you have 30 more minutes of either break or working on your work session. So work session 1 is part 2, which is about the SLO cycle, its components, and SLO support items. So you will be asked to listen to the slides for work session 1. You'll be asked to complete the SLO process district decisions assignment. And then there's a quiz to just check for your understanding. And in a little bit, I'll take you to our Google Sheet just so we can walk through these materials together. You can have your lunch and then proceed with work session 2, or knock it all down, session 1, session 2, it's up to you. So for this one, we're covering part 3, which is selecting assessments for SLOs. So again, listen to the slides for work session 2, complete the estimate selection district decisions assignment, and then complete work session 2 quiz for your understanding. And just to let you know, in order to listen to the slides for both work session 1 and work session 2, you need to actually download the slides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unshare, and I'm going to share how I get to the Google slide that Rodney created. Or Google site, I keep saying. We have so many Google tools, Google site. All right, let me see. Just open that. All right, and you have this in your, oh, there you go. I was about to drop that in. You already have that in your logistics email. Rodney has it dropped down. I am going here. So here you will see that if you're on the main page, you will see the agenda. Teams link, the flow of today, but you would need to be on the SLO training resources so that you could get to the materials and the activities that you are doing asynchronously. All right. So you have the different resources here. And these are the ones that you need to download. So I'll just do a sample and click and make sure that you download so that you can listen to the recording. All right. So everything is here, very straightforward, self-explanatory. Are there questions before we let you go? And just hop on the mic since it's I'm projecting this right now, so I can't really see the chat nor your cameras.
And I just need to clarify something for the quiz for work session 2. 2 of the questions, you'll see them, but there's one question that's going to ask you about district size and resources. It's going to give you, when you select the correct answer, it's going to say that that's the wrong answer. You'll see that particular one. And then the last question on quiz 2, there are actually 2 different answers, but you can choose either one. We're not checking it per se, but we will, if we have time, we will review the content afterwards. That way everybody's on the same page. But there are 2 questions on quiz 2 that the answers didn't quite match up with the with being correct, but you'll see those 2. I mean, the assessment is tied to the content, so it's pretty simple. But just a heads up on that, and we'll go over it again when we debrief this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Rodney. So again, if you're looking for the links to the quizzes, it would be on the first section, SLO district training. And these are the ones that, okay, where you'll see the quiz. And then just scroll down some more. And you have a quiz 2. And then the specific resources for the work sessions, apart from the quizzes, are here on this section where it says SLO training resources. All right, so if you don't have any questions, we are happy to let you off and you enjoy your lunch and your work sessions 1 and 2, and we will see you back at 12:30.